Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have Asha Rangappa with us today. We'll chat with her in just a moment. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening. And we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media. And we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe. And you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Asha Rangappa is a lawyer, scholar, and media commentator. She's held senior administrative and teaching roles at Yale University for nearly 2 decades, where her work, including advising deans on governance and strategy, helped guide institutional growth during periods of transition. And she teaches courses on national security law, Russian information warfare, and leadership and ethics. Prior to Yale, Asha served as a special agent in the New York division of the FBI, specializing in counterintelligence investigations. She's the author of The Freedom Academy, a best-selling online Substack publication that explores how to create democratic resilience in America's social fabric. And she's the co-host of the legal podcast, It's Complicated, with Renato Mariotti. Her next book, UNCOMPROMISED, Activating Your Moral Compass in an Age of Complicity, will be published in 2028. She's a former legal and national security analyst for CNN and ABC News, and her work has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, and other outlets. She's an editor for Just Security, a member of the Council of Foreign Relations, and a security fellow with the Truman National Security Project. Asha, welcome into the back room.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
It's an honor to have you here. I've been an admirer of you and your work for quite some time, so I'm really looking forward to getting your insights on a whole bunch of stuff.
Great. I'm ready to talk about anything.
All right. So let's start with the Iran war, which, depending upon which minute of which day you listen to Donald Trump, is either about to end or become a massive escalation. Give me the good, the bad, and the ugly from your perspective of where we are right now, if all of those three things exist. I'm not sure they do. Maybe 2 of them exist.
The good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, the good, which is not really a good thing, but in the sense that it has focused public attention, I think is good, right? There are so many things about this administration that it's what Bannon said early on, like flood the zone with shit. Like there's just so much shit out there that people can't pay attention. But I think when we go to war, and this affects people's lives in very direct ways, whether it's because they are connected to people who are being, might be sent there, or because, shipping routes are closed and, prices are up, and all of these things. I do think like one good thing is it has really focused attention on the administration, on something that has been able to sustain the news cycle for more than like a day. And so I think that that's helpful because it keeps people politically engaged at a time when I think it's very easy to check out. The bad is that it has all of those impacts, right? I mean, this affects our lives. It creates, makes things more expensive. It puts lives at risk. I think it increases the potential for terrorist threats, also at a time when our intelligence agencies are being hollowed out and less able to respond to them. So that's all the bad. And I mean, the ugly, I would say, is this is a reality that people need to understand about our government as it's currently constituted, which is that as much as Congress has tried to rein in the executive branch's ability to unilaterally make war, the executive branch can unilaterally make war. We can talk separately about whether it's legal or constitutional, but in reality, the president is the commander in chief. And I think we saw even before Iran with Venezuela, with the boat strikes, if you don't have a political will to use political remedies to stop abuses of power, the president has enormous power to take kinetic military action in addition to all kinds of other action that really can change the course of world events. And people just need to understand that when they put somebody in the Oval Office.
So let's talk about that legal and constitutional aspect for a second, because there is the War Powers Resolution. There was a 60-day deadline. It came and went. SecDef, Hegseth just kind of brushed it off like, there's a ceasefire, so we're paused and it doesn't count. They just make it up as they go along. But we do have laws in this country. I think we've realized a while back that one man is above the law. But in terms of an administration not obeying the law, are we at a place in this country right now where this entire administration is above the law and they could just do whatever they want, when they want, on whatever they want?
Yeah. So let me address a few different things. So the War Powers Resolution, which was passed in 1973 as a response to Vietnam, and the executive branch basically going to war without proper deliberation and representation. It's an important piece of legislation, but frankly, I think at this point, it's become clear that there are provisions of it that are too ambiguous and that it lacks teeth in a lot of ways. And so, even before the Trump administration, presidential administrations have not fully acknowledged the constitutionality of it as a constraint. I mean, the accretion of war powers to the executive branch has been going on for a long time, well before Trump. And so that has been something that, we're now seeing manifest in this way. But, from Clinton in Bosnia and Obama in Libya, I mean, there have been even Democratic administrations that have, creatively interpreted their war powers. And the executive branch's own interpretation of its Article 2 authority is that the executive branch can unilaterally make war if, one, it is in the national interest, however the executive branch defines it, and two, if it does not constitute war in the constitutional sense. What is war in the constitutional sense? Well, the executive branch says as long as we're not engaged in hostilities, meaning that there's no boots on the ground or risk of escalation, it's not war. So if we're just doing airstrikes, this was Obama's argument, that's not hostilities. The 60-day clock doesn't apply. So there's all these debates between the branches. What's different? So I think the War Powers Resolution needs to be completely updated because it's clearly not working. What's different, I think, about what Trump is doing now is at least in the past, you had presidents come and try to make a case for the public on why we're doing it in the national interest and what the goal is, and kind of acknowledging that there needs to be public buy-in to do it. And what you see with this administration, both with regard to Iran, but with everything else, is they act like they don't need public buy-in for anything. This is truly just what the day-to-day whims and caprices of one man. And we just do, he wants to build a WWE cage in the front lawn. I guess we're doing that now. He's building an art. I mean, this is, on the one hand, an executive branch run amok that believes itself to be above the law, but also two other branches that are allowing it to operate above the law.
Right,
I think
that's
we
the
can't
key.
forget that.
Well, that's a really important point because I go back and forth questioning whether the framers really had shit buttoned up or whether this administration just is understanding where the loopholes and the openings are. And if the co-equal branches of government abdicate their constitutional responsibilities, then how could you blame the framers, right? They designed a system. Like, just think about it today. If the Republican Congress just pulled the trigger on the 25th Amendment or impeached, or if the Supreme Court didn't give him absolute immunity, we would be in a different situation. So I kind of land at the place of, well, we do have a constitution and there are measures in there to address this, a rogue president. But you're right. It's a
No,
different
the
ballgame.
mechanisms are there. I think it's like it would take what, like 23 members of Congress to actually be willing to do something. I mean, it's not that many. Like, but the focus is so much on Trump that we forget that there is that responsibility there. There are mechanisms to address this, and people poo-poo it like, oh, impeachment doesn't work. Well, you know what? That's the remedy. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't something for the courts to deal with, actually. The lower courts are doing a pretty good job, but they're only designed to address the specific cases that come before them. They're not there to actually, you know, disempower
Right.
a co-equal branch.
Like,
I
just think
think
about it in his first term. If a few more than 7 Republican senators had voted to convict, he would have been removed from office. Now,
and potentially prohibited from running again.
that's right.
He could
That's
have
right.
been disqualified. He
Yeah.
literally could have been disqualified because that is a
Yeah.
penalty that can be imposed. So to the framers, I think that there are two things that the framers expected, right? I mean, they clearly designed, they were coming out of a tyrannical government. That's what they're protecting against, right?
Hmm.
There are all these provisions that are trying to avoid the concentration of power, the checks and balances, limiting appropriations for the standing army to 2 years, like putting a lot of power in Congress as a check. I think they expected two things. Number one, I think they expected the members who served in our government to care more about their institutional prerogatives than their party. I mean, parties didn't even exist at that point. So they believed that members of Congress would care about Congress as an institution. That's what led to the War Powers Resolution, right? Congress was
Hmm.
like, actually, we have a say as an institution in this bipartisan way vis-a-vis the executive branch. We don't want to give our power away. That's what they're doing. The second thing that the framers expected, and I'm writing a little bit about this in my book, is they believed that public servants would be virtuous
Right.
and that we would select people, like people would be screened out who did not have private virtue, and as a result they would be able to use the power they have in the interest of public virtue, in the public good, right? And so they have all of these screening mechanisms. I mean, the Electoral College is supposed to be there as like a buffer in case, the popular vote is for like a cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs person. We're gonna make sure that it's the person of a right temperament that actually gets elected. Um, I describe it as the Titanic, Andy. Like, you remember that the Titanic was designed to be, it was considered unsinkable because the hull was divided into compartments. And the idea was with dividers between the compartments, right? And so the idea was even if like you damage the hull in one place and that filled up with water, the water would not
Right. Penetrate into
and
other.
it would still, and so I
Hmm.
was like, oh, it was
Right.
unsinkable. Well, it just so hit the iceberg in a way that like cut through like,
Right.
many compartments. But that's what we are, is our constitution and our system has all these compartments, right? Like party gatekeepers, the electoral college, checks and balances, impeachment. And what we're seeing is the water has just flowed and flowed and flowed, and it's filled up the entire hull. I think maybe federalism, the states are like one bulwark that's still left. Maybe the lower courts, though, of
But
course,
the Supreme Court is messing with that.
yeah,
They pick and choose.
they
And
pick and choose.
in
Yeah,
2000, they didn't care much about federalism. They decided an
correct.
election. You
They
know,
did.
and
Yes, they
today they're
did.
ruling like, oh, it's all about the states, and
Yeah.
so, until they decide it's not about the states.
Yeah, I mean, the Supreme Court is a problem.
Hmm.
Remind me, are you a lawyer?
No.
You're not. So, I feel like in the legal profession, you go to law school and you come out with a certain reverence for the Supreme Court, right? Understanding that it's made bad decisions and it's made good decisions, but like, and certainly political context always matters when you're talking about a case. Um, but that generally that justices are like trying to get to a right answer, even if they might have a you might disagree with their way of getting to that answer. Okay. I might put Scalia in this category. Like, I disagree with him. He was, frankly, he was pretty consistent with a lot of the way, like when I teach some of my 9/11 cases, you know, there are times when he pushes back on, the executive branch because he has certain views that he
Hmm.
kind of sticks to. This court is literally making up stuff as it goes along. And it's very clear that it's like this outcome-based reverse engineering based on partisan lines. And when you even look at scholars who follow the Supreme Court, Steve Vladeck, I just had Leah Littman on my Substack yesterday, when they who like literally what their job is to watch the Supreme Court and follow it are like, this institution has gone completely rogue.
And has that problem been exacerbated by the shadow docket?
Yes, it's been exacerbated. The shadow docket is a manifestation of its willingness to, the court's way of being accountable to the public is to explain its decisions. That's
You
what
think?
gives its legitimacy, right? Like, even if you disagree with Bush versus Gore, which I do, the fact that like they gave some reasoning, we can at least critique it. They're accountable for it. When you just issue stays, grants of stays without explaining why, allowing people to be deported or like whatever is happening, um, especially when it's going against well understood meanings of the law as it stands, that just shows that you're not accountable. You don't feel like you're accountable.
Right. And it makes
Um,
it even more complicated when they kick it back down to the lower courts, but the lower
yes.
courts are like, what do you want us to do?
Hmm.
Because they're not giving explanations.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, this just happened in Alabama, right? That, you
Hmm.
know, even after the Supreme Court case in Louisiana versus Calais, where they eviscerate, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, they throw everything back down. Like you have to reevaluate all these maps. And like Alabama's like, okay, yeah, we're reevaluating it. And this is still, you know, was motivated by discriminatory intent. Like, what are we going to say? So um, I think there is a divide between the lower courts, and I just want to emphasize that because people lump the courts together. I do
Right.
think for the most part, the lower courts are trying their best
And
and
doing a pretty
holding
good
up the
job.
court and doing a pretty good job, though. As you said, everything lands with the court, and then you have people in the court like Sam Alito, who is like complete MAGA brain. Like he must just watch Fox News all day long. Like they
Yeah.
don't make sense. He makes stuff up. He like imports conspiracy theories. I don't know.
But how do we deal with that? We can vote out Congress people. Hopefully
Yeah.
in November, hopefully we have a new Congress in the House and the Senate. What do we do with Supreme Court justices who have lifetime appointments, yet are seemingly in the tank for Trump and MAGA?
I mean, when I was talking with Professor Littman yesterday, her answer was we expand the court, you
Right, but
know.
name me a Democrat who has the balls to do that.
So this is part of the problem, Andy. Like, I don't know why what we have been seeing with Republicans well before Trump, going back to basically 1995 under Newt Gingrich, 1994, right? When the he became Speaker of the House, is hardball, constitutional hardball, like scorched earth.
Hmm.
And it's been this, I don't know if the Democratic Party is like just deluded or they think if they just keep acting like everything's normal, that things are going to come back to normal. It's not. So sometimes you need to overcorrect so that you can bring things back on track. Like, I mean, this is my criticism of Merrick Garland's Justice Department, which is they come in power and they're like, we're just going to go back to, doing things by the book, which is
But do you think
great.
it's more arrogance? Like, we're above that. We don't do that. That's what they
Yeah,
do. We don't do that. As they're getting trampled on. And this
right.
country is on the precipice of autocracy.
Yeah, I think so. It's like, well, when they go low, we go high. I
Right,
mean,
that whole
you
thing.
know, I mean, there was that response to um a Stephen Miller tweet. Did you see this the other day where
Which
he
one?
said something about I can't say his last name, uh
Tallarico.
Tallarico, and he says something about like, Democrats have just nominated their first transgender candidate or
Yes,
something
I saw that.
stupid. And the Democratic Party tweet back was, "Shut up, you ugly fuck."
Yeah. Not
It's
not a lie.
not a
True.
lie.
True, but I see your point.
And like apparent I was just reading an article about how Katie Miller lost her mind about that. But like this is the thing. this is like it's asymmetrical warfare, right? Because what happens is when you have one side that goes rogue, let's use Russia. Okay. We have one side that goes rogue, refuses to play by the rules, starts doing crazy shit, like assassinating people, like, and the other side is like, we are going to just do what we're going to pretend like everybody's playing normal.
Right.
Then you become a weak player in that. You have to you have to rebalance that asymmetry. And
Hmm.
the other side is counting on you continuing to do what you've always done.
Right.
So the way you shake it up is by doing something different, which is why I like that tweet. It's just like, oh, like, okay, they're going to go there now. So yeah, so expanding the core, I mean, we need to start thinking outside the box. I think Congress can also take away jurisdiction from the courts for certain kinds of cases. There are things that that Congress can do. Um,
What does that
you
look
know,
like? Like, give an example of that, because I think to the layperson at home, they're like, "What? What does that mean?"
Yeah, well, let's see. After 9/11, I mean, this didn't fly, but the Bush administration tried to remove habeas cases arising out of Guantanamo from the jurisdiction of the federal courts.
On
Like
what
you just
grounds?
Congress can declare the jurisdiction of these courts.
Right.
So they just said, no, you can't hear these cases. Now the court pushed back
Mm.
and we're like, oh no, you didn't. Like we want to be able to hear it because habeas is so fundamental
Right.
that, it's literally the ability for the court to have a say in it at all. Um, but there are, so that's a little bit different than saying, maybe I don't know what that would look like, but there are things that Congress can do. And like one thing that I'm actually going to work on today after we get off this call is, um, I have been thinking about constitutional amendments. And,
Hmm.
we this like impeachment, we write it off as, oh, that will never happen. And it's true, it's an incredibly cumbersome process. It takes a very long time, but there was a time when we used to amend the Constitution relatively frequently. I mean, there are
Right.
27 amendments, like
Right.
that did happen. And maybe we need to reimagine the government and create,
That
whether
does not
it's
require. But
abolishing
that
term
require.
limits or
Yeah, but that's a
creating a fourth
supermajority,
branch.
right? Like, are you really gonna get a supermajority in these toxic partisan times
I
to?
think we're at a point where you need to go big or go home. Like,
Mm,
I think if everything gets poo-pooed as like it's just never gonna
can't
happen,
happen. Right.
and you're just like, then let's just put on our sweatpants and, you know, grab an Ambien and a scotch and call it a day. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
think there's a lot of people doing that right now.
right. Like, people did. I don't know. I mean, people should go look at the amendments to the Constitution. Like, at some point, people found enough political will to, create prohibition, to literally ban drinking
Right.
via a constitutional amendment. And then the other half got pissed off and like found the political will to turn it around. I mean, we can do this if we mobilize around causes or ideas that we really think are important.
Well, it's like you say, if we don't go scorched earth now, right? Like I always say, is our democracy on the precipice really? Because if you think it really is, then you have to go scorched earth,
Hmm.
right? You can't pretend it's the 1980s and you're running against Newt Gingrich.
Right.
But I think Democrats are sort of divided. They're like, Chris Murphy in the beginning of the Trump term was like, 6 months from now, we're going to be a dictatorship, blah, blah, blah. So there's people that were really trying to sound the alarm. And then there are the people who are just like, business as usual. So I don't think the Democrats are unified. Then you see a guy like Gavin Newsom come along and he kind of goes scorched earth. But I don't understand if people really feel like Trump is out of control and getting more out of control every day, which he is, if he's testing the boundaries of democracy more and more every day, which he is, if we truly believe that we may not have a democracy left in 2.5 years, I mean, we have 2.5 more years of this, which is
Hmm.
terrifying, then what the hell are you doing? Right? I mean, but can Democrats do it? Are they hardwired that way? Can they go scorched earth? You look at Chuck Schumer. You think he can go
Oh,
scorched earth?
no, I don't think so.
Okay. I mean,
I
like,
don't think Chuck can. But like, then let's get Chuck out.
right,
Get the Chuck out.
right. AOC can go scorched earth.
AOC can go scorched earth.
I don't agree with
You
a lot of her
know,
policies
I don't
personally,
either. And
but
you
I'd be
know,
happy with her in charge because
yeah,
I know she would fight the fight. She wouldn't bring a knife to a gunfight, and
that's right.
they all need to do that. Some of them can. The younger ones, Auchincloss, Walkinshaw, Jason Crow. There's a group of them that are fighters, but the
And
leadership
I think we
is
don't
not.
like I don't think it will take that much from them because at the end of the day, this is about the people. Like, I think, what people we think like it's going to be a leader that saves us. It's not. It's
Oh,
us,
the people,
right?
absolutely.
But you need somebody who's willing to to be the face and say the things that you want to say, like that tweet from, right, like
Right.
say what everybody is thinking, because then people feel like, okay, this is not a lost cause. I'm not alone. And then we can pick it up from there. I mean, in Hungary, it wasn't one person. It wasn't, I mean, there
Mm-hmm.
was a leader, but he rallied the people.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the people ultimately that extricated them from a 16-year rule that
Yeah.
seemed inevitable and seemed like forever. I had another talk on my Substack with Professor Kim Schapelli, who's an expert in Hungary. She's a professor at Princeton, and she quoted a Soviet anthropologist who said after the fall of the Soviet Union, everything seemed forever until it was no more.
Right.
And so, we're sitting here feeling like things are inevitable, and I think we need to think big, get empowered, and everybody needs to just do something. And I think you're right that we need like the leadership, but the leadership might also respond to us. Like Minneapolis, it was the people coming out and saying, you know, fuck this ICE stuff. Like this is enough. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think you saw members of Congress finally start fighting about that.
It's a fortunate and unfortunate situation that we're talking about if we're talking about Minneapolis, because it took the citizens of that city to literally be shot dead in the street
Yeah.
for that kind of rebellion to happen. And once it did, it worked. But if you're just sitting at home and you're watching the news, if you watch the news and you're somewhat motivated to like vote for change, but then if it rains on election day, you're like, I don't want to go get wet. I mean, look at the last election in 24, the turnout, we lost Roe v. Wade. Like, there were so many reasons why people should have flooded. There should have been 65, 70% turnout. And it was like an anemic turnout.
Yeah.
I don't know where that disconnect is coming from, unless it's just, people like you and I, yeah, we're obsessed. We're junkies, nerds, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But most people are like getting up, feeding the kids, going to work, come home, feed the kids, maybe watch an hour of something on TV and then go to bed and do it all over again. They're not like on Substack. But then you look at every election in the last 18 months has gone the way of Democrats for the most part, right? Every special
Because
election.
I think, again, I just don't like getting fatalistic. It's true that
Mm-hmm.
there are all these problems, but as you just said, there are elections that are showing that people do care. And they
Yeah.
care when it starts hitting their pocketbook. Yeah, they're taking their kids, but when, they're not able to do all the things that they're wanting to do, and then they see that Trump is building a ballroom or has a $1.8 billion trust, that's a trust fund, slush fund to that gets through to people.
Yeah. It is important to stay optimistic. I try in my various ways with how I reach people is just stay engaged, stay positive, vote, make sure everybody you know votes, because that's the one day of the year where the janitor and the billionaire have the exact same power. We have to make sure people understand that. And I think when you look at the fact that we've won all these elections, that also says, well, maybe the messaging coming out of the Democratic Party is the right one. And so as a Democrat, I'm sitting here on the verge of June thinking we're in a pretty good place. And the reason why you see morons like Stephen Miller, who, by the way, if there's a person on earth, if there's a man on earth who should not comment on the testosterone levels of anybody else, I mean, the guy looks like an actual human nipple, right? Like he literally looks like a nipple. But Why do you think he's attacking Tallarico and calling him trans? They are desperate. They are terrified.
Yeah.
Terrified, because that's the only. He's a vegan. Really? Okay. Ken Paxton is a fraudster. He's corrupt. He's a philanderer. He's been impeached. He is all the things that the Bible actually tells you not to do. Tallarico, he's a vegan, and then they make up some shit about him being trans. Like, so what does that say? That says we probably can flip Texas if people get out and vote.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I also think people underestimate, and this is, I think, become more evident in the year and a half now, than maybe it was at the beginning. At the beginning of, the second Trump administration seemed really scary. It seemed like everybody was folding immediately, the media, universities, law firms. But now I think it's become clear that this is a clown show.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous clown show, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a clown show. Like, these people are incompetent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the New York Times article about how autocracies need like mediocre, dumb, and incompetent people to pull everything off, because
Right.
those are the people who will do anything they're told because they would never have the jobs that they have but for,
Right.
this corrupt system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at Hegseth and Cash, but like, in what world would like, how high would Cash Patel go in a normal universe? Nowhere. Like, I
Not.
mean, not the director of the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, same thing with Hegseth. Same thing with Christine. Like, all these people, and the one saving grace, not even saving grace. I hate using these words because they make it sound like good things, but the incompetence and combined with spectacle that they all love to do, which is put everything on social media, like Patel chugging that beer in the Olympics or whatever, um, creates the messaging itself. Like, whatever Democrats aren't saying, we can see.
Yeah. Picture says a thousand
The
words.
picture says a thousand words, and I do think people are like, these people are dumb and have no idea what they're doing, and now, like, they're running this country into the ground. I think that's being seen, and it would be more dangerous. This is my point. If they were doing this all secretly, if they were shrewder and smarter and doing everything in the dark, like, they could actually do a lot of damage,
As they've already done.
as they've already done. But I think
They
that
can't
like,
seal the deal,
so
though.
they're terrified. This goes back to the reason they're terrified is they have not been able to hide the cruelty, the incompetence, the destructiveness. I mean, like, like with ICE in Minneapolis, so much so that even your politically disengaged person is like, I think it cuts through to them. They're like, you
Yeah,
know,
something
ain't
has
nobody got time for
changed.
this,
Yeah, something has definitely changed, and I agree with you 100% about the incompetence. Like, if you go back and listen to my podcasts consistently since the election in 2024, anything I've written on Substack, I have called them the gang that can't shoot straight. And I said that, and this is even in the darkest moments when everybody was jumping off the roof because we're about to go dictatorship. I said it's that incompetence that will ultimately save us from
Yeah.
becoming a
Yeah.
dictatorship.
I
Because
think
it's
that's
so
100%.
easy. It's like, okay, it's like, you put Donald Trump, Bobby Kennedy, this one, Patel, Hegseth, put Bondi, put them all in a room. What are they? What make believe it's a company instead of a government, right?
Right.
Could they run a company? Like,
It's like
it would
The
be
Office.
bankrupt.
It's like The Office.
No, at least the office had
I
humor
know that. Yeah.
and charm, right? But
Right.
and it was pretend. But what they successfully did, what Trump successfully did, was testing the boundaries of democracy,
Yeah.
testing the boundaries of the Constitution, testing people's bravery and courage or lack
Yeah.
thereof. And to your point, had they had their shit buttoned up, we might not be having this conversation right now
I
because
think that's right.
we might be afraid we're going to end up in Guantanamo if we do. That's a scary thing.
Look at DOJ, like this judge that just dismissed the indictment against the Broadview Six. I mean, they literally, so they've fired everybody who knows what, how to practice law and how to actually prosecute a case. So they were just getting these like yahoos like pretty much off the street. Like, they're advertising on like Twitter, like, want to be an AUSA? And so these people, whoever, who've never tried cases, are going in and engaging in complete prosecutorial misconduct in front of the grand jury. So, like, again, the incompetence is getting in their way because then we do have checks in the system that are still working. And
Hmm.
like whether it's juries returning no bills or the judges like reading the transcripts and being like, yeah, you can't do that actually. Like you can't tamper with the jury and you know, intimidate that whatever they're doing. So if they were, yeah, I think
Well,
it just underscore the point that their incompetence is truly.
hmm
And
let's.
speaking of incompetence, how dumb is it to run a campaign that you're going to expose the Epstein files and then you get in power and then you refuse to expose the Epstein files? That's the thing that broke the dam, I think. That
Well,
kind of got people.
that
Yeah.
was like the first thing that broke
Yeah.
through because you're right. It's like, how do you say if you put me back in the Oval Office, this is what I'm going to do, and then when you get there, you say, I am innocent. I have nothing to hide, but I am now not going to do anything I promised you
I
and act
don't
as
even
if I am
understand. I still have not
hiding
got,
something.
nobody has been able to give me an answer on why that was such a, like a major part of the platform if you were
Well,
never going to do it.
this might be the simple answer.
Okay.
It's either confession or projection with Trump all the time, and he's a
Yeah.
pathological liar, and he's an opportunist. So he said what he said because he understood what MAGA wanted to hear, but because he only operates in the 3 to 5 minutes in front of him and
Hmm.
doesn't plan, he has no. This is why he'll say conflicting things from 1 hour to another. Because I
Right.
don't know whether it's dementia, I don't know whether it's just hubris or delusion or all of the above on
Yeah.
some level, but in our final minutes, I want to talk about the weaponization. You're a former special agent with the FBI. When you look at this FBI, when you look at this Justice Department, when you look at Kash Patel, when you see what acting AG Todd Blanche is doing or what they're not doing, as much as we think it's unconscionable, it must be something totally different for you.
Yeah. I mean, this is an organization that is real like has always prided itself in being like steady, you know, by the book. And I know people have criticisms of the FBI and they make mistakes, but like there were things to catch those people, you know, and then make reforms. I mean, it's an organization that's not perfect, but I think really valued being seen as highly professional with integrity, you know, reliable, steady, all of these things. Fidelity, bravery, integrity are like in the three values. And just like the firings, the resignations, I mean, the people that I talk to inside tell me that it's much worse inside than even it appears from the outside. Um,
So when Patel says morale is great, he's lying.
he's lying.
Hmm.
That cannot possibly be true. I
Hmm.
mean, uh, you see like your leaders being fired left and right, you know, for trying to protect the institution, and it happened to Brian Driscoll when he wouldn't
Right.
give up the names of everybody.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, for me, I think the thing that keeps me up at night is, you know, people spend their careers in the bureau and they gain a ton of institutional knowledge uh, with regard to different kinds of threats, whether it's cyber, whether it's terrorism. When you purge this many people so quickly, especially and including at the senior ranks, you've just eviscerated like probably a century's worth of like knowledge, you know, of how to respond to threats. And like that's not something you can easily get back by just hiring new people. Like it's not like even if we get past the Trump administration, it's good. People need to understand it's not going to go back to normal. What we've seen, and I think this is true across the federal government and the executive branch, but especially at DOJ and the FBI, it's going to take at least a decade to rebuild our Justice Department. And I don't even know how you will do it, right? Because who knows what yahoos they've gotten off the street that are there now. I mean, you know, Patel was planning to, I don't know if he's implemented this, but like planning to hire people as special agents who don't even have college degrees.
Right.
Like, which, you know, these are complex threat investigations. Like you require a lot of, you know, analytical skills, writing skills, all these things. They want compliance. So what do you do with the people there? How do you rebuild it? How do you get that knowledge base back? How do you get the culture back? because now you have a culture gap, right? Like when I went in, I was trained by older agents who passed on certain norms and expectations of how this agency operates, what is expected of you. You should always be above reproach. Um, I don't know how we're going to rebuild that. People need to expect that there's going to be literally a reconstruction period if we can ever get past this.
Do you think there will be a day where, and this ties back to the conversation we were having before about Democrats possibly being above the fray. Like I see this administration, I see Trump, I see Patel, I see all of them do things, and I say, one day they're all going to pay, and then I go, well, maybe they're not, because I could almost hear like that Merrick Garland type of Democratic sentimentality of, look,
we can't do that. We need to stop the cycle.
Yeah, it's 2030. He's long gone. We're in power now. We have to move forward. There's no point looking in the rearview mirror, blah, 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 blah. I could almost hear it in my head. And I wonder, will they ever face the music the way they should?
So I think it depends on how you define face the music. And this has been my little soapbox for a little while now, which is that people think that accountability only means criminal accountability.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the only thing that matters is this person going to end up in an orange jumpsuit and, in a courtroom. And I think as we saw with Trump after his first term, when we pin our hopes on that, you're likely to be disappointed because a criminal law to begin with is very narrow. The bar is very high. There are all kinds of things that make it difficult from the get-go. Then you have things like the immunity decision. Then you have things like most of these people are going to be pardoned on the way out. So we have to reconsider what we mean by accountability. And I think we should not rule out things like shame sanctions, truth and reconciliation commissions, like things that bring attention and public understanding and shared consensus about what happened, and what we condemn. Like those are all kinds of public accountability.
Like we saw after the first term with all the law licenses being revoked.
Yes, that was something. Exactly. There's also professional sanctions. There are other ways, and I think people believe that those are not satisfying, but the reality is that probably criminal sanctions are not going to happen with most of these people, mainly I think because they're going to get pardoned on the way out. And that might be actually a blessing in disguise because it's going to force a conversation about how we create accountability. And, I think we were talking earlier about how people, no, this was somebody else I was talking to, but there will be people who, when this is all over, are going to deny that they had anything to do with it.
Right.
It'll be like, collective amnesia, or I was just a person in the room. I wasn't making decisions or whatever.
Right.
So we're going to need to name the people, what they did. And maybe there's going to have to be some period of like deprogramming, after World War II, there was like the whole denazification in Germany. We need like some kind of demogification, because
the electorate for sure.
Yes.
But I just fear like if we don't have accountability, then we run the risk of all this shit happening again.
And there are things that we can do like tear down the ballroom or turn the ballroom into a January 6th memorial museum of, everything that happened.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I have been saying that, and this is for this scorched earth file, any Democrat who runs for president in 28 should say, if you elect me, on day one, I begin implementing the teardown of the ballroom. And then I implement the plans to rebuild as closely as we can to the original, the East Wing.
Yeah.
Make them, like, who cares if it never even happens, right? But just go balls out and say.
We're taking down this art.
But why wouldn't it happen? Why wouldn't it happen?
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah. But
we're going to put Jackie's garden back. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it's about whether or not they have it in them. Asha, this has been a great conversation. I hope you come back and chat with us again.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All righty, take care.
Bye.
This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhinecliff, with additional editing by Maddie Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Langell. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.